Hey, so I'm a game developer that made a game in 90 days. I do multiple types of engineering, such as nuclear, software, and mechanical, and I've also launched a lot of other projects. And you might be wondering, how is this possible? The answer, time management. Time management isn't about developing a skill of focus, it's actually about getting rid of all your distractions. And from personal experience, I realized the number one greatest distraction of all time is actually lust, specifically corn. And the reason why I say this is because it's actually a black hole that just ends up consuming all of your time. It's addictive. It makes you do the wrong things. And so it's a really frustrating thing as a game developer because you're working on a bunch of tasks at like high level quality and everything. And the honest part that sucks the most is that you're frying your dopamine receptors, which means you're breaking your own reward system. It becomes so challenging to work on extremely difficult, challenging, unique tasks when you realize that you don't even have the energy to do it. And so I'm just going to quickly summarize this, but corn is such a problem for these reasons. You become less productive, it stunts your skill development, and it just doesn't let you focus on your project. And so, how can you tell me as a game developer, hey, I got to do all these crazy tasks and everything, but I'm just spending all my time on the wrong things, right? So, that being said, there is an answer for this. There's actually a huge solution on how to get rid of this. It's actually just mastering self control. More importantly, the ability to increase your self denial. But this is way easier said than done. And so what I'm going to do in this video is explain the tips and tricks that I did and the habits that I built in order to actually just quit corn completely. And I'm telling you this from experience because I remember the moment I completely quit, I was able to do all these amazing projects and such. And so we're going to go ahead and start off with something that sounds pretty obvious, but it's control what you consume. And I specifically mean about media and food. Media is, hey, like actually don't open the app, don't watch the videos or the images and such. But I really want to start to illustrate this picture of food, right? Think about it. It's Friday. You worked really hard, you turned in all your reports, and your manager's like really proud of you, right? And they bring donuts and brownies and all these sweets, and they're like, hey, congrats, the reports were really good and everything, you should reward yourself with a brownie, right? Instinctively, you start thinking and you think, hey, like that sounds great, like I'd like a brownie, right? But take one step back. Who's asking you? And more importantly, who's forcing you to take the brownie? You don't have to. Yeah, it might look great, it might taste good and everything, but you know it's sugary, you know it's not really good for your body, you know over time it could, it's make you sluggish and such. And so when you give yourself that space to justify why you shouldn't have the brownie, you start to recognize, wait, I'm learning why I shouldn't do this, therefore I can say no to this. Congratulations, you just accomplished step number one in this entire journey. If you know how to deny a sweet, whether it's for justification, for health reasons, for just a simple fact that, hey, I can say no, you do this over and over again, and suddenly you start building the habit of saying no. When you do this, you just become stronger and you know how to recognize how to stop engaging in activities that are not beneficial for you. If you can say no to a brownie or the donuts, you can say no to doom scrolling. You can say no to the content creators that are pushing content that probably isn't beneficial for you. You can stop going on the app. You can delete things that don't benefit you. And so once you learn this habit, you can just keep building this up and up, which brings me to my next point. You should take pride in the strength of saying no, because every time you feel reward for saying no, because you know you're going to end up saying yes to the things that actually do matter, you got to take pride in that. I say this because this allows you to build your character as a person, and this is where you as a game developer recognizes, well, if I want to truly prioritize my game, if I want to make sure that my players are going to have a great time playing the game and everything, I need to make sure that I deny parts of myself in order to best serve others. And if you can do this consistently, you will become a powerful person. And this is something that's very respectable and admirable. And so the next thing is, hey, you're a game developer, so you should stay busy as often as possible, right? And this is really good because the busier you are, the less focused you are on just wasting your time with these activities that don't matter. But more importantly, it's two things that you have to pay attention to. It's actually minimizing the amount of breaks you take and also engaging in other hobbies that are helpful. I say minimize breaks specifically because as developers, yeah, we're going to be busy working on our games with all these features and such, but the minimize break part is the important part. If you're taking a break for like 2 hours and you're like, oh, I'll get back to this maybe tomorrow or later, this and that, that free time that you have of you idling or doing nothing really important gives you so much space to engage in the wrong activities. So either you reduce that break into something that's really short, maybe like 15 minutes, or you start to engage in the other hobbies that actually matter to you. So for example, I think, and a really like cool secret or trick or even a hack is, why don't you do a sport? And the reason why we talk about sports is because, sports is a form of a hobby. It's something relaxing or fun or, something that takes your mind off of things. But more importantly, it requires energy. And so if you don't have the energy to perform the sport in the first place, then you can't enjoy the sport. But wait, what's taking away my energy in the first place again? Oh yeah, watching corn. So Sports actually helps you kind of just like combat that because it makes you say, well, I need to be energetic for performing, therefore I got to make sure that I'm not engaging in those wrong activities. The next thing I'm going to say is scheduling, right? So if we're talking about being busy and such, try to put as many deadlines as possible that are like really strict. I say this for the Parkinson's law reason, which basically means, hey, allocate all your time in these extreme small sprints so that you can be as productive as possible, right? And so I made a video called, how it only took 500 hours to make my game, which you'll recognize 90 days is actually way more than you think. The thing is, it's what you use and what you do in those 90 days, right? Because in 90 days, you have 2,000 plus hours, but you're only going to need 500 of them to actually do what you have to do. And so if you have strict deadlines, not only as a game developer, you're going to go ahead and push your project forward, you're going to make more progress and everything, but you're actually in a position where you just cannot afford to do anything else. Suddenly hanging out or doing other activities is just very difficult to do. Therefore, you're completely minimizing the ability to even engage in watching this content that is terrible, right? The next thing is something that I absolutely love about game developers is that we get to plan from point 0 to 100, right? And so planning is just a fancy way of reverse engineering. If I want to make a game that has these genres, these characters, all of these like cool features and such, I have to list them out, put them in a GDD, and then work on the path to actually getting to launch. When we do this backwards, then we can see what are the effects that we're going to try to go for by creating the cause and then working on the cause. That being said, in slang, there's a word called, post-nut clarity, which basically means, hey, like, what happens after you engage in a type of activity that makes you feel a little bit guilty, shameful, kind of like tired and everything. And if you know that feeling sucks, just avoid it. How do you avoid it? Well, let's not engage in the activity that causes that. Well, that sounds obvious, right? But more importantly, if you keep going backwards and you keep searching, hey, what is causing this? You'll slowly realize that you're building a personal path to understanding yourself on where your weaknesses are. So if you know that this urge is caused by this trigger, then why don't we fight the trigger? This is my next point here, which is trace it, face it, erase it, and replace it. If you can find a trigger that actually like bothers you or gives you that urge in the first place, you need to find a way to get rid of it. So this could be a content creator. This could be just you doom scrolling. This could be you on a certain app. This could be you on a certain account. Get rid of that. If that's actually not serving you, literally find a way to get out of it. The other thing is try to build an environment that supports suppressing these triggers. So we have the block button, we have the I'm not interested mechanic in various websites and such. Again, maybe you just are on an app that you're not supposed to be in the first place. Go ahead and really work on these things, and also check what's in your room, check what's in your personal life. Maybe you have friends that are encouraging the wrong type of behaviors and such. Just really build that environment that allows you to stay away from these things as often as possible. And then I also heavily recommend that you need to work on your integrity as a person. I think that's a characteristic that's extremely important, really valid and everything. But what integrity is basically you being honest with yourself, both in private and in public. So who you are as a public figure should equally reflect who you are as a private figure. If you do something in private that you're not comfortable doing in public, then ask yourself, should I really be doing this in the first place? And the best example I can give you is, hey, would you watch these images and videos in front of your friends, family, and like parents? Probably not. And so if that's the case, then you should probably just not engage in that in the first place. Always try to be as transparent and honest with yourself as you would in person, as well as alone in your room or in private, and really keep that consistent because that continues to build your character, not only as a person, but again, as a game developer, because now you're able to continue delivering promises to people. The other thing is the Fizzle Method. If we know that these urges are temporary, then yeah, we could like wait it out and then move on to something else. But the trick is actually jumping into a different task, because once you do this, you literally just say, wait, let me work on this other task. Now I'm focused on this task. Oh, hey, what was the thing that just happened again? I don't know. It was temporary. It's gone. It fizzled out. So go ahead and use that to your advantage. Just always constantly do something else, all right? And then I also want to exaggerate, and this is an exaggeration, but I do think that there's a high stakes between this entire process, right? As in, you break your streak and you have to start all over. You're tired. You have to build yourself back up. You have to reinforce new habits. You have to recognize what went wrong, right? And it's a really heavy thing to carry. And I also say, oh, your legacy depends on it, because there's a high probability that you are a game developer, you're making an amazing game, you probably want to open a studio one day, you probably want to be extremely profitable, you probably have these goals, dreams, and ambitions of being just a very successful game developer. And if you really think about it, there's a lot of sacrifice that you have to do to actually reach that level. The craziest part about all of this is that there's a lot of self-suppression, a lot of self-denial that you have to constantly push yourself onto. And if you're unable to do this, then you're not able to do something great. Which brings me to the next point here, because because yeah, there's a lot of things that developers have to do, and you should definitely work on that. But I also think that greatness requires sacrifice. Take one step back. Think about people that you respect, you admire, your heroes, anybody that motivates you, anybody that inspires you to do better. They probably have something great about them. And the important thing about this is that you would probably have a very hard time imagining how it would look like if they were in the rooms alone, looking at a corner, just looking at these like photos and such. Probably like that wouldn't align with their character, right? And so what I'm saying about the whole greatness thing is that there's going to be a lot of things that you probably want to do that you just have to give up for the sake of the mission, for the sake of making your game, for the sake of making the player feel better and everything. And the more you practice that, the stronger you are as a person. But then I would also say that maybe sometimes we develop habits completely unconsciously and on accident. And maybe it is unfortunate that we are in a situation where we have to talk about this in the first place because this was something that was not normalized back then, you know? But now it's like, hey, this happened. What's important is taking the accountability and saying, okay, I'm struggling with this. Let me go ahead and fight it back. And if you're able to actually snap this, issue away, if you're able to quit, if you're able just to move on with all strength possible, you become a very important, respectable person. And then suddenly you become just like the people that inspire you to become a better person. And so what I want you to do is just think about your ideal self for a second and think, okay, does your ideal self have a bunch of games out? Are they a studio owner and director? Are they making like a bunch of money? Are they doing all these things? If that's the case, then what are the habits that they do in order to, reach that? What are the distractions that they got rid of to reach that? And so this is you versus yourself at the end of the day. And you're absolutely capable of doing all the things that you can do as long as you're willing to get rid of your distractions, right? And so if you want to make games quickly, if you want to go ahead and make high quality stuff, if you want to go ahead and just do whatever you have to do in order to complete your games, get rid of all of these distractions. And honestly, and you know the answer to this, but if this is something that just takes away from your development, why is it there in the first place? All right. So anyway, to recap, how do we break free? We start saying no to things and we just build a habit of doing that. Let's be proud and stay strong on building these streaks. Make sure that you stay busy, always keep working on your game, minimize your breaks, try to have a lot of hobbies, specifically sports. Sports is a really good hack. Avoid feeling guilty by actually like meditating on the fact like I would feel weird if I did that, so let me like not do that. Erase your triggers, get a better environment, be honest with yourself both in public and private, use temporary emotions to fight your urge, as in like, hey, this is a temporary feeling, it's going to go away, so whatever. Understand that there's high stakes in this entire process, so try your best as much as possible just to keep denying yourself from these wicked things. Try to aspire to be a respectable developer, try to become that ideal version of yourself. End of the day, do this for you, your game, and your players, because as a game developer, you have a mission to carry, and this is something that we should not be taking lightly. So I think this is one of the greatest crutches of all time. Once you get rid of it, you end up having so much more time possible. It changes your career. It is absolutely powerful, and I absolutely recommend everybody to do all their best efforts to just get rid of watching corn. Thank you.